Part 43. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 421. Chapter 421 Chapter 421 Should I call her sister-in-law? Uncle Wu, I don't want you to be so nice to me. I've obviously done so many things that made you sad. Zhang Xiaoxiao recalled that he disobeyed and went to Yannian's house to propose marriage. That in itself was a huge mistake, so what happened next she felt it was all her fault. But it was obviously her fault, and her fifth uncle had to shoulder the responsibility for her. Life was so painful that she didn't want to see such a scene again. Fu Jianxiao's eyes were soft. If the fifth uncle is not good to you, who will be nice to you? In the eyes of the fifth uncle, you are the best. Fifth uncle, what if I can't live without you? More and more Zhang Xiao found that she was really dependent on Fu Jianxiao now. She really didn't know how long she could stay in this body. She only knew that her body was now being an outsider encroached, and she could not fully return. Then there's no need to leave, Uncle Wu will be by your side forever. Fu Jianxiao gave Zhang Xiaoxi a great sense of security. The two embraced each other. Fu Qiuqiao looked behind them for a long time. Her wife always said that Xiao Wu was so cold, who could stand to be with him in the future? Not gentle at all. It's not that Fu Jianxiao is not gentle, but that he only gave his gentleness to Zhang Xiaoxi. Xiao Wu, you and Xiao Xiao should go back. I will inform you when Dad wakes up. Fu Qiuqiao interrupted the embrace between the two. Zhang Xiaoxi came out of Fu Jianxiao's arms like a frightened bird. His big tearful eyes were full of panic, his hands were tangled together, and he was at a loss. This was the first time he faced Fu Jianxiao after his relationship with Fu Jianxiao became public. The family is very nervous, similar to the elders. Unlike Fu Yan, she may be able to treat Fu Yan as a best friend and a close sister, but when facing Fu Qiuqiao, she can't get along with her in the same way as she does with Fu Yan. Fu Qiuqiao has a serious and oppressive feeling as a parent. Zhang Xiao nervously called out, "Uncle." Fu Qiuqiao glanced at Zhang Xiaoxiao and frowned slightly. Why did his voice sound so weird now? It felt weird. If she married Xiao Wu, should he call her uncle? She is called sister-in-law, and Fu Ling wants to call her fifth aunt. Cough cough cough. Fu Qiuqiao stopped his thoughts and coughed a few times to cover up the weirdness in his heart. He looked at Zhang Xiaoxiao, a little embarrassed. Xiaoxiao, if you feel uncomfortable, just go back to the hospital bed and lie down. Your grandpa is here with us. Okay, Uncle. Zhang Xiao nodded obediently, and then added, Uncle, if something happens to grandpa, you must inform me as soon as possible. Yeah. Fu Qiuqiao nodded. He really needed some time to accept what was going on between the two of them. Fu Jianxiao and Fu Qiuqiao looked at each other and pushed Zhang Xiaoxi out of the intensive care unit. Instead of going back to the ward, he went directly back to Nangzi Hospital. Perhaps Zhang was too sensitive when she was young. She felt that many servants were looking at her strangely when she returned to Nangzi courtyard. So after Fu Jianxiao took her back to the room, she never wanted to step out of the room again. She was afraid of seeing those strange looks and hearing some unpleasant rumors when she went out. She didn't even dare to turn on her phone to look at it. She didn't need to. I also knew that the hot searches must be all about her and Fu Jianxiao. Would you like something to eat? Fu Jianxiao noticed that her mood was not right and spoke to her deliberately. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 422. Chapter 422,422 Bless you. No. Zhang Xiao refused instinctively, and the rejection was obvious. Fu Jianxiao frowned, his cold eyes full of worry. Young child, don't be afraid, my fifth uncle is there for everything, no one dares to say anything. Uncle Wu, I know, I'm really not hungry. Before Zhang Xiao could finish her words, her stomach growled, exposing her lie in a very shameless way. Jiangxi. I asked Aunt Zhang to cook hot pot noodles for you. Fu Jianxiu didn't laugh at her, but was just worried. How could the little girl do this? She couldn't stand the strange eyes of her family, and how could she resist the rumors outside? Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at Fu Jianxiu with a flushed face, his eyelids were half lowered, his teeth were biting his lips, and his voice was thin. Uncle Wu, I'm not afraid, I just need a little time. Fu Jianxiu helped her straighten the broken hair on her forehead, with a gentle look on her face. Uncle Wu knows that you are not afraid, but we still need to eat, otherwise how can we help Uncle Wu to fight together? Zhang Xiao lowered his head in shame. Uncle Wu, I'm sorry. Fu Jianxiu sighed slightly. The little girl said she was sorry so many times today. It was really worrying. Child, you are right. You have not sorry to anyone, do you understand? Ye Zhang Xiao's answer was not very courageous, but it was much better than before. Aunt Zhang brought the cooked hot pot noodles to the room and placed it on the bedside table next to her. Just as she was about to leave silently, she was stopped by Fu Jianxiu. You can finish eating with me. I have something to go to the study to deal with. Okay. Fifth uncle, I'll go with you. Zhang Xiaoxi grabbed Fu Jianxiu's sleeve, his big eyes full of prayer. Fu Jianxiu opened her hand that was holding the corner of his clothes and comforted her. I will be back soon. You have to eat and drink first. Aunt Zhang will accompany you. Fifth uncle. Even if Zhang Xiaoxi acted coquettishly, he still couldn't keep Fu Jianxiu. She and Aunt Zhang were the only ones left in the huge room. Zhang Xiao was eating hot pot noodles in small bites. The only sound of her eating was in the air, which was really embarrassing. In the end, Zhang Xiaoxiao couldn't help but speak first. Aunt Zhang, do you know what happened between me and my fifth uncle? Aunt Zhang nodded and smiled. Well, I saw the news on my phone and wish you all the best. You and fifth master are a good match. Zhang Xiaoxiao's pupils dilated when she heard what Aunt Zhang said. She never expected that she would have such an attitude. Aunt Zhang, don't you think it's really not good for me to be like this with Uncle Wu? What makes you feel bad? Aunt Zhang asked her in turn. Zhang Xiaoxi bit her lip, thinking of the hot searches that Chu Hanyu showed her. There were many unsavory comments below, such as old cows eating young grass, moral turpitude, seduction, and other unpleasant things, such as Zhang, if my aunt gives me such a blessing, I will definitely not find it. The relationship between me and my fifth uncle will have a bad reputation, Zhang Xiao said more straightforwardly. Aunt Zhang smiled. When I was little, I asked you if you like the fifth master. Like. Since you like each other, and you two like each other, why can't you be together? You live your life on your own. Only you know whether you are compatible or not, and whether you are happy or not. How outsiders evaluate it is all their business. I don't know why you and I are not surprised. Is it related to Mr. Wu? That's because I've known that Mr. Wu likes you, and I knew you were pregnant because of the recipe Mr. Wu printed, so I wasn't surprised. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 423. Chapter 423. Chapter 423. Don't miss the people who are good to you. Print the recipe. What recipe? Zhang Xiao asked in surprise. When you were young, didn't you realize that your preferences have changed a lot? You never ate so many spicy foods before, and they were still very spicy. Now you do, and your menstrual period is very punctual every month. I didn't see any sanitary napkins you used when I was cleaning the bathroom this month, so I guessed it based on these factors. Zhang Xiao never thought that Aunt Zhang would be so attentive and would keep all the rules of her life in her mind. Aunt Zhang also gave birth to children when she was young, so she is very aware of these changes. Aunt Zhang said. Jiangxi. When you are young, don't worry about what people outside say. As your most personal caregiver, Aunt Zhang can see many things clearly and clearly. Don't miss the people who treat you well. This is Aunt Zhang, a married woman. I told you. Zhang Xiaoxiao knew that Fu Chenexai was very kind to him, but what he heard from Bi Rang's words was so sweet and joyful. Thank you, Aunt Zhang. I feel much better after talking to you. Do you still want to eat? I drank a lot and I'm afraid you won't have enough to eat. Aunt Zhang looked at Zhang Xiaoxi with a smile. Well, I want more. People naturally eat more when they are in a happy mood. Fu Chenexai came back from the study and obviously felt that Zhang Xiao was in a much happier mood. Want to go for a walk? Yeah, Zhang Xiao nodded. Zhang Xiao held Fu Chenexai's hand and walked in the garden of Nangziyuan. There were still many servants looking at them, many of them looking at them strangely. Zhang acted as if he hadn't seen her when he was young. He was in a completely different state than when he came back in the afternoon. Uncle Wu, what do you want our baby to be called? Fu Chenexai stared at her, his eyes full of affection. What do you want to be called? Zhang Xiao pouted and said unhappily, the baby's name is chosen by the father, and I don't want to choose it. I haven't thought about it yet. I'll tell you what to do when I think about it. Fu Chenexai squeezed her palm. Fifth uncle, I love you so much. Zhang Xiaoxiao suddenly struck Fu Chenexai's face, and his big eyes shone like thousands of stars. Fu Chenexai pulled her over, lowered his head and directly covered her lips, turning and rubbing her. It took almost 5 minutes before he let her go. Looking at Zhang Xiaoxiao, who was panting slightly, Fu Chenexai narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, 5 uncle, I love you too. Zhang Xiao blushed and leaned on Fu Chenexai's chest. After the walk, Zhang Xiao went to bed early. Downstairs, Fu Chenexai glanced coldly at the hundreds of servants standing in the hall. Butler Zhu pointed out the people Fu Chenexai glanced at and said coldly, you don't have to do it, I will give you more your 3-month salary. The person who was called out couldn't believe that he had been fired. With an anxious expression on his face, Butler Zhu, what can we know about me? Butler Zhu glanced at this pretty good-looking servant and said, I didn't do my job well. The woman was not convinced. Why didn't she do her duty well? Butler Zhu, I don't accept your reason. I am in charge of the garden. The flowers in the garden are not lush with leaves and flowers. I didn't fail in my job. Your work is not wrong, but my duty is not just about flowers and trees. Butler Zhu looked at this person with disappointment, who still didn't know where he was wrong. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 424. Chapter 424. Chapter 424. Happy Cooperation. Then we didn't see what we shouldn't have seen, or listen to what we shouldn't have heard, the woman retorted to the supervisor. There were many smart people present, and they naturally understood what Butler Zhu said. When the woman asked that question without thinking, they couldn't help but stay away from her. Steward Zhu frowned, really wanting to know who recruited this brainless woman, and not wanting to talk nonsense with her. He waved his hand and asked the security guard to take her away. The woman is the type who refuses to leave without getting the answer, crying and shouting, I signed a labor contract with you, you can't fire me like this. Throw the person out. Butler Zhu saw Fu Chenexai frowning slightly and scolded him sharply. The woman was lying on the ground and was dragged out by the security guard. No wonder your family has such a big scandal. My uncle and niece are unethical and deserve to be criticized by everyone. They are not good people. When Butler Zhu heard the woman's words, his heart trembled fiercely. The corners of his eyes twitched twice. He instantly felt the temperature around him drop. Seal the person's mouth and lock him in a dark room. The security guard was also frightened by the woman's unrestrained words. This is the last thing that should be discussed in this family now. This woman almost killed them. The security guard quickly covered the woman's mouth with his hands and carried her out. The remaining servants naturally felt the low pressure in the living room and did not dare to take a breath for fear that they would be the next to suffer. "Let me say a few words." Butler Zhu watched the woman leave before turning his gaze to the servant who was still standing, and began to lecture, with a serious expression. "You all still remember the first clause in the contract when you signed it, right?" Everyone nodded, and then responded in unison, "Don't listen, don't look, don't speak, don't speak. Just remember, we are all smart people, just go down and do your part." After Butler Zhu said this, he let people disperse and return to their jobs. After the others left, Fu Chenxiu also stood up and said to Butler Zhu, "Take care of this person. It's the fifth master." Zhou Yuling of Mo Ziweiyuan's family drank red wine, with the corners of her mouth raised, her face full of the pleasure of revenge, and the ends of her eyes raised slightly. "Mr. Mo, I'm not lying to you. This way, both parties will have no time to pay attention to you. You can feel free to think of countermeasures. Mr. Zhou, how does it feel to take revenge on a man who doesn't love you?" The red wine glass in Mo Ziweiyuan's hand lightly touched the wine glass in Zhou Yuling's hand. Zhou Yuling took a sip of red wine, her eyes filled with hatred for Fu Chenxiu. "This feeling is natural and refreshing. If Mr. Mo can drive him into despair and make him come back to beg me, I will be even happier. I will naturally fulfill Mr. Zhou's wish. After all, if I don't kill him, I will be the one who gets killed." Mo Ziweiyuan gritted his teeth and said. "Then I wish us a happy cooperation." Zhou Yuling drank the wine in the glass, picked up the bag next to her and left Mo's house. In the car, Jin Runs looked at the woman sitting in the passenger seat with her eyes closed and asked, "Is it worth it?" Of course the woman's red lips moved slightly, but her tone was unusually certain. "If she can't get it, others shouldn't think about it. If she can't get it, then it will be destroyed. Let's get married." Jin Runs looked at Zhou Yuling from the corner of his eyes. This woman he had loved since college until now, and he has been working hard to one day have absolute strength to stand side by side with her. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 425. Chapter 425. Chapter 425. Help me capture the Mo family. When he said those words, there was silence in the car for a long time. Only the soft music that had been playing in the car was playing. Jin Run held the steering wheel tightly with both hands, with a look of loss on his face. She still would not agree this time. "You already know the result, right?" Jin Run retracted his eyes in a self-mocking manner. "Good." A woman's shallow voice sounded in the car. The car braked suddenly and stopped on the side of the road. Next to it was the man's ecstatic expression, with a lot of disbelief in his tone. "Really?" Zhou Yuling opened her eyes calmly and looked at the man's ecstatic expression. She hooked her hands around the man's neck and kissed him on the lips with a seductive look in her eyes. "I promise you, but you also have to promise me to help me get Mo's." "Okay, I promise you, I will help you get Mo's." Jin Runs kissed her back. "Go to your house." Zhou Yuling's bright fingers touched his cheek. It didn't matter who she married. It was difficult for her to make a comeback in Ruchin and reach the top of her family. Then she would make a comeback in the east of Rongcheng. Zhang Xiaoxiao was not Mo someone from home. She wanted to take away everything that belonged to her and destroy her. Hospital. Mr. Fu woke up in the middle of the night. The first thing he said when he opened his eyes was, "Call Fu Chenxiu." Fu Qiuqiao originally didn't want to call Fu Chenxiu, but the old man was agitated and his heartbeat was racing. Fu Qiuqiao had no choice but to call Fu Chenxiu. At the door of the ward, he said, "Xiao Wu, Dad really can't be stimulated anymore." "You have a point in what you say." Fu Chenxiu put on sterile clothes and walked into the ward silently. He looked at the old man who was wearing a ventilator on the hospital bed and had difficulty speaking. His face was expressionless, Dad, you can't tear us apart. As soon as Fujinexiu spoke, the old man's chest rose and fell violently, and he weakly reprimanded, "Asshole. It's a done deal." Fujinexiu didn't pay attention to what the old man said, and said this to make matters worse. The old man's face turned red, and the instrument that detected the old man's heart began to beep. "You are her uncle." Fu Chen lowered his eyebrows and said, "There is no blood relationship. You know this better than me. There is no blood relationship, but it is more than blood relationship. You raised her with your own hands, how could you do it?" The old man gritted his teeth, and his old eyes were red with anger. Fu Jianxiu deepened the crease between his eyebrows and looked at the old man's face that was red with anger. "I love her very much." "Then you can't do anything to her. How old is she when she was a child? Her life has just begun, and you have taken over her life. Have you ever thought about it when you were a child?" The old man confirmed that it was Fu Jianxiu in his words. He was the one who forced Zhang Xiaoxiao to watch him grow up. If Fu Jianxiu hadn't forced him, things would never have become what they are now. "I'm over 18 years old, not too young, otherwise I won't be able to get a marriage certificate." Fu Jianxiu was simply someone who didn't make the old man angry to death with his words. You bastard." The old man knocked weakly on the side of the hospital bed, so the instruments placed on him were all ticking. Fu Jianxiu lowered his eyebrows and pressed the button on the bed. "Your body is not suitable to talk to me now, otherwise you will not see your grandson born. You." The old man took a deep breath to adjust his breathing. If possible, he wanted to beat Fu Jianxiu to death. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 426. Chapter 426. Chapter 426. Do you want your grandson to have no father? I'm going to send my child abroad. I'll go with him and you'll stay in the country. The old man spoke to Fu Jianxiu in a commanding tone this time, without any discussion. Fu Jianxiu pursed his thin lips and frowned deeply. "Do you want your grandson to have no father?" This is the first time Mr. Fu has regretted giving birth to such a son who is not a human being, even worse than a beast. He should give him a good. "I will treat you as a son without you. I will help raise the child in her belly when she is young." Fu Jianxiu looked at the old man with the crease between his eyebrows deepened, and said thoughtfully, "Are you sure you will live longer than me?" "Did I?" At this time, the old man's heartbeat accelerated even more. Fortunately, Fu Jianxiu rang the ambulance bell just now, and Guanyang's eyes were red and bloodshot as he tried to save the old man. Fu Jianxiu walked out of the ward silently. As soon as he left the ward, he was stopped by Fu Qiuqiao. "Xiao, didn't we agree not to make the old man angry?" "I'm not angry with him. I'll answer whatever he says," Fu Jianxiu said matter-of-factly. Fu Qiuqiao simply worried about his old father's heart. "Xiao Wu, can't you speak properly?" Fu Jianxiu leaned against the wall and looked at Fu Qiuqiao. "Is there any smoke?" "No, your sister-in-law asked me to quit smoking." Fu Qiuqiao fumbled in his bag for a long time, and finally took out a lollipop from his pocket and gave it to Fu Jianxiu. "Your sister-in-law asked me to use candy instead of cigarettes." Fu Jianxiu looked at the lollipop, frowned and took it without peeling it off. He held the lollipop in his mouth and made a smoking motion. Fu Yan came to deliver food and looked at Fu Jianxiu with twitching eyes. "What a weird style of painting." "Xiao Wu, have you eaten yet?" Fu Yan handed the rice to Fu Qiuqiao and asked Fu Jianxiu. "Well, I ate it when I was little. This is my first pregnancy. You must pay attention to what you eat. There are some things you can't eat and some things you can eat more of. Forget it, it's no use saying so much. I'll print it out for you when you go back and read it," Fu Yan explained. "Good. Don't go to school for the time being. There are many boys in the school, and it's very dangerous if they bump into each other. Fu Yan's mother was not here, and whether Zhang had parents when he was young, Fu Yan took on the responsibility of being a mother and worried about them. Are there any tests that should be done? How many weeks? It's been almost a month, and I've already checked it out. Fu Jianxiu still had the B ultrasound picture in his arms. As a family doctor, you need to prepare an obstetrics doctor. Is there anyone available? If not, I'll go back and find Dr. Pan. Good. Fu Yan asked a lot of questions there, and finally said she was still worried. Xiao, how about I move to Nangziyuan, so I can feel more at ease? No, I'll take note of everything you said. Fu Jianxiu directly refused Fu Yan's request. He would take good care of Zhang when he was a child. He didn't want anyone to interfere in their lives, so no one would get used to it. Xiao Wu, I almost forgot to mention the most important point. I believe the doctor will tell you that you and Xiao Wu should not have sex. Do you understand? Fu Yan almost forgot about this matter. Her younger brother, if a man in his late 30s indulges in without paying attention to propriety, something will happen. Fu Qiuqiao was eating aside and almost choked to death at what his sister said. Lao San, Xiao Wu knows everything, you don't have to say it so clearly. Brother, what do you men know? You only care about yourself, and you don't consider women's feelings. Fu Yan lectured Fu Qiuqiao. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 427. Chapter 427. Chapter 427. Brother Fu, can you come to my wedding? When a woman is pregnant, her body and mind are relatively fragile. At this time, she needs care most. When my eldest brother and sister-in-law were pregnant, I remember that you were dispatched to country Z. You were not there during the entire pregnancy, so you did not speak. Right. Fu Qiuqiao silently went to the corner to eat with his rice, because what Fu Yan said was true. This was what he felt most guilty about. When his wife gave birth to a child, he did not come back until a few days before the birth, which also led to, at that time, his wife was suffering from depression and had a difficult delivery, which resulted in massive postpartum hemorrhage. She managed to save her life, but she is no longer able to give birth. Xiao, do you remember everything I said? Fu Yan stared at Fu Jianxiu. Fu Jianxiu peeled off the lollipop in his hand and put it in his mouth. The sweetness of the sugar stimulated his taste buds. He frowned slightly and finally threw the lollipop into the trash can. I remember everything you said. Tonight you go back, I will guard the old man here. You don't go back. What will happen to Zhang Xiao? Fu Yan has now classified Zhang Xiao as a panda, who needs someone to watch him all the time. It's okay, someone is watching. Fu Jianxiu stayed in the hospital because the old man fainted again when he was provoked by him. If the old man really did something, his little girl would blame him and get angry with him. We'll just watch. You go back and watch the hour. Fu Yan felt that he didn't listen at all to what she just said. What she needs most during pregnancy is companionship, and their affairs are still on the hot surge. The kind that can't be withdrawn even after spending money, so it's even more important to go back and stay with Zhang Xiao. The third child is right, we just need to keep an eye on the hour. You go back. Fu Qiuqiao was also chasing him away, for no other reason than that he was afraid that the old man would faint from anger again. In the end, Fu Jianxiu was driven away by the two of them. On the way back, he received a call from Luo Yi, fifth master. I found out that it was Mo Ziyuan who was responsible, but how did he know about the child? I haven't figured it out yet. Check it out. Fifth master, there is another news. Zhou Yuling got married to Jin Runs in Rongcheng this afternoon. When Luo Yi saw the news, he never thought that these two incomparable people would get married. Zhou Yuling has been with Fu Jianxiu for 10 years. He had never heard of any relationship between her and Jin Run's. When he received the news, he checked and found out that the two were college classmates, or the kind who didn't belong to the same department. Well, send someone to keep an eye on them. Fu Chenexai was still on the phone with Luo Yi, when Zhou Yuling's call came in. Brother Fu, I'm getting married. Can you be a matchmaker at my wedding on the 15th next month? Zhou Yuling was lying in Jin Run's arms and talking to Fu Chenexai. I will ask Luo Yi to deliver the gift. Aren't you coming? Brother Fu, I no longer have my parents, and all my relatives have cut off contact with me. I don't even have anyone to hold my hand and hand it to my husband, Zhou Yuling said pitifully. If you want, I can ask the old man to lead you into the wedding ceremony. Brother Fu, how are you doing? Zhou Yuling asked deliberately, because she already knew that Mr. Fu had been admitted to the hospital because of their cell phones. Fu Chenexai immediately hung up the phone on her and continued talking to Luo Yi. What did Mo Zhongxiang say? Cooperate, after all, the little lady is her sister. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 428. Chapter 428. Chapter 428. So you gave her your life, right? Rongcheng Hospital. Mo Zhongxiang and Su Yuans were in a stalemate, and there was a smell of gunpowder in the air. I'm just going to hold a press conference, and I'll be back soon. Su Yuan's clear-cut face was dark and stern, and he was grinding his teeth. Mo Zhongxiang, do you think you are a superman or a god? You want to be discharged from the hospital just 2 days after the operation. Does the doctor agree? Mo Zhongxiang knew that it would be difficult for him to go out, but Zhang Xiaoxi's matter was more urgent than her hospitalization. I have already promised my master. I don't agree. Su Yuan stood in front of Mo Zhongxiang without giving in. Mo Zhongxiang's face was bloodless and he had a headache. He couldn't lose his temper because this guy was a soft-spoken guy. He rolled his eyes and stretched out his hand to pull the corner of his sleeve. If you come with me, you don't have to worry. Su Yuan Zejun's face was cold and tense, and he looked down at the hand holding his clothes. His voice was cold and hard. You are not allowed to go. I will accompany you in the hospital, but don't think about it when you go out. Mo Zhongxiang. You only agreed to him, but you didn't say when to do it, so it's not too late to go after your wound is healed. It's just public opinion. It's not a big deal for a few days tonight. Su Yuan's in turn persuaded her. Mo Zhongxiang. Lie back. The doctor said your wound is still unstable. If you don't pay attention to the thread collapse, you will be in danger. When Mo Zhongxiang was pushed out, Su Yuan's had already run to ask the doctor what he should pay attention to, and put what the doctor said was recorded in my mind exactly. Mo Zhongxiang was wearing a hospital gown and just stood in a stalemate with him, trying to please him. Can't I just go for a short while? No, Su Yuan said in a non-negotiable tone. Mo Zhongxiang lay down on the bed angrily. When she was in a stalemate with Su Yuan's, she felt that the wound was not right and it seemed to be a little painful. However, the press conference must be held and no one could tell that she was sick, otherwise the shareholders who support her will most likely no longer support her. This battle has just begun. I will help you deal with Jiangxi's affairs, Su Yuan said in a cold voice. Mo Zhongxiang looked at him expectantly with his eyes wide open. Do you have any idea? You don't have to hold the press conference in person, just send a photo or a statement, Su Yuan said coldly. Of course she knew that she could just make a statement. If that was the case, it would appear that she was not important to Zhang Xiaoxi. She was saying that Fu Chenexai was very good to Zhang Xiaoxi, but as a sister, she wanted to be her backing. Her parents' attitude was very important. No, that would show that I don't pay attention to my time. Su Yuan's frowned and stared at the woman who was contradicting him. You are hurt now. I know, but it's just a small press conference. I can hold on. I didn't protect her well when I was little. Now that I have the opportunity, I will try my best to protect her and do a good job for her. Mo Zhangxiang felt guilty for Zhang Ziaxi. He felt guilty that he had not fulfilled his responsibility as a sister and owed her too much. So, you gave her your life, didn't you? Su Yuan's growled, the veins on his forehead were exposed and popped out, he was very angry, and his mood was higher than before. Mo Zhangxiang looked at him blankly, wondering what was wrong with him. Why do emotions change so quickly? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 429. Chapter 429. Chapter 429. And you won't let me protect you. Su Yuan's, I'm fine, I'm really fine. Mo Zhangxiang whispered to comfort someone who was emotionally unstable. Su Yuan's narrow eyes were red. Mo Zhangxiang, your life is not only yours but mine, do you understand? Mo Zhangxiang. She was protected by Fu Chen when she was a child, but you. Su Yuan's gritted his molars and looked at her with resentful eyes, and you didn't let me protect you. Mo Zhangxiang looked at Su Yuan's with a resentful look, as if she had committed some heinous crime. Without your protection, I'm afraid I wouldn't be lying here today, but would be cremated. Mo Zhangxiang's last word was stuck in his throat, and he swallowed it back because someone's eyes were so scary, as if he wanted to eat her. Without your protection, can I still stand here alive and well? Mo Zhangxiang suddenly changed his tone, looking at someone with a flattering and dry smile. Su Yuan stared at her coldly, and twitched his face with a sneer. If you really want me to protect you, come back with me now. As for Mo Ziyuan, I will help you kill him to avoid future troubles. Mo Zhangxiang. Can you just say kill without hesitation? It must be punished by law, but I can only dare to say this silently in my heart. Looking at her attitude, Su Yuan's knew that someone would not be so obedient. His face was a bit uglier than before. If you don't want me to protect you, then heal your injuries first and don't test my bottom line again. Mo Zhangxiang bit his lip in frustration and muttered in a low voice, I want you to protect me. I didn't say not to protect you. Then be obedient. Su Yuan's lowered his eyebrows and said. Mo Zhangxiang. Nang Ziyuan. Zhang Ziaxi looked at her phone and scrolled through Weibo. Fu Chenxiu did not take her phone away. The news about her and Fu Chenxiu was still on the top of the hot search list. This time, even Zhao Huiyan's scandal did not help her divert the attention of the public. Cite. The reason why the popularity is so high is simple. It's because Fu Chenxiu and Wen Yuru have just broken off their engagement. She was raised by Fu Chenxiu and she is pregnant. From an outsider's perspective, their relationship is unethical. Zhang Ziaxi knew how unpleasant the comments were without scrolling down, but Chu Hanyu enthusiastically sent her a message, Xiao Xiao, I spent millions to find someone to help you scold the trolls. Zhangxi. When I was young, those trolls at night only saw the surface and were just keyboard warriors. You should give them a slap in the face. Chu Hanyu typed the keyboard emotionally, and she also used my own tipster broke the gossip about Zhao Huiyan and the artists of his own entertainment company, just to help Zhang Ziaxi share some of the heat. Zhao Huiyan's manager here was going crazy, Mr. Zhao, this lady from the entertainment industry who tells the truth, how come you have so many gossips, even telling the story of how old you were when you wet the bed. Zhao Huiyan glanced at the profile picture, her eyes twitched, and she said helplessly, let her go. Economic man. Mr. Zhao, are you kidding? We have to send her a lawyer's letter. She is talking nonsense. How does she know what happened when you were a child? I don't even know about your bedwetting. Zhao Huiyan. And Nangxuan must have told that girl Naiyuniu. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 430. Chapter 430. Chapter 432. Ruthless. Mr. Zhao, are you listening to me? The manager is as anxious as an ant on a hot pot. Recently, his Mr. Zhao has been targeted. He is on the hot search every day. In this way, it will become a problem. Black and red artists, we are on the path to strength. Almost finished. Zhao Huiyan said with an indifferent attitude, let her go, I know her. Agent. Petrified on the spot, acquaintance, Mr. Zhao, has your reputation been so bad? Even with her eyes covered, Zhao Huiyan could think that all the news about her bedwetting must be because of Zhang Xiaxi's incident, and she had to help Zhang Xiaxi now. Swipe a few times on the phone's address book and make a call. Senior. An explosive sound came through the current, and Zhao Huiyan spoke with a smile on her face, Yuxi, Senior, I have something to ask you for help. Senior, tell me. It's the kind where you can break the news and be more fierce. The agent was completely dumbfounded at this time. What happened? But what happened? His Mr. Zhao, the young man who made popular traffic go to the acting school, broke the news. Isn't this ruining someone's future? Or let people destroy themselves? The other party was silent for about 2 or 3 minutes before replying, did you encounter any difficulties, Senior? It's not me, do you remember that girl? Zhao Huiyan didn't hide it either. He liked Yi 11 very much. He was hard-working, diligent, not impetuous, and had a bright future. I understand, Senior, do you have anything else to say? I'm still filming. Yuxi, thank you in advance, Senior. As long as Senior has good productions in the future, he will definitely call you. Zhao Huiyan knew that he had agreed. The material of a popular niche will definitely cover up a certain amount of popularity. This favor is huge. After Zhao Huiyan finished talking to Yi 11 on the phone, her agent had already hanged herself with a piece of white water chestnut next to her. Oh my god! How will he face Yi 11's manager in the future? His own artist has led someone else's artist astray, a little Hongmiao who has a well-established talent. Hang yourself quickly, I just don't have enough heat, Zhao Huiyan said ruthlessly to her agent. Economic man. What kind of fate is he? Met such an ancestor. At noon of the day, the popular traffic niche posted a photo on Weibo, without any text, just a simple shadow picture of a woman. Fans went crazy at the time. The first poster said, what is going on? Is our brother in love? My old aunt's heart is broken. After all comments, talking well upstairs, my younger brother, still falling in love, smiling. Our younger brother is currently focusing on filming, these must be stills. We refuse to tie up CP and return our younger brother. I absolutely don't believe that my brother is in love, and my old aunt's heart is broken and she doesn't believe it is true. My brother, now you should be able to write some words. 11 Bayo Bayo, you are still young, so don't be in a hurry to fall in love. Zhang Shi also saw this Weibo post, and before he clicked on the photo, Chu Hanyu was bombarded with messages, Xiao Shi, I'm broken in love, and my brother posted a picture with no words, woo woo wow, I don't accept it, and you can't accept it either, right? Zhang Shi. I must find out who my brother is from, I want to find out. End of this chapter.